Hey everybody, this is Cody Wright, and today I'm going to take a little time to talk about my influences and just kind of skirt the top of it a little bit. Some of the influences that come out really obviously in what I do on bass. I'm a guitar player. I was a guitar player when I started. I was a big fan of pretty much most anyone who played a Stratocaster well. And of course all kinds of other guitars too. One of my big guitar influences coming up was Nuno Bettencourt of Extreme. Some of his funk-inspired lines that he was playing on guitar with a pick, I would incorporate onto the bass much later, kind of inspired by that sort of thing. You know, you take a song like Political Amity. And Get the Funk Out and Rest in Peace and a bunch of their songs. I just religiously sat down for 8 hours, 10 hours a day figuring out some of those solos and lines and stuff and the rhythm parts. He was one of my all-time favorite songwriters too. So yeah. Nuno. Of course, Stevie Ray Vaughan on guitar was huge for me, and I take a lot of that into the bass in terms of bends and whatnot, you know. And just things like that. It's really easy if you played like blues guitar. For me, it's really easy to just take to the bass and start playing it like that. But to me, the real magic of the craft in that way is to be able to blend all those guitar influences with an actual bass player's sensibilities if you're playing the bass, you know. So that was the part that took me a long time when I was starting out to really get the hang of. I had the technique from the guitar, but I was working on the rhythm and the roll and everything else of the bass. On bass, speaking of, Bobby Vega has a huge influence with the pick. You know, the whole 16-note groove thing. But I was listening also when I was really getting into the bass to a lot of Oteil Burbridge and his chord movement and chord voicings. Playing things like that, singing to it. I just really resonated with it, you know. And his birthday's a day before mine, so that's kind of funny. And while we're on that kind of note, Jaco is a spiritual influence of mine because we're both from Florida, and you know, I was like barely one when he died, and it was really crazy to think about just that I was around, you know, for almost a year in that period at the same time. But so I feel something in my heart with him more so than the actual stuff that comes out in the playing. A lot of my lines are from guitar players, fusion guitar players, guys like Frank Gambale and Sean Lane inspired. But then you think about it, and those types of players are inspired by people like Charlie Parker. And so was Jaco, but Jaco was translating it directly onto the bass, whereas I'm like a filter between the guitar world and the bass from horns and things like that. Also, keyboards are a huge influence of mine. I love Art Tatum, one of my favorites ever, Bud Powell. Some other favorite musicians of mine are Roland Kirk. I love Yamandu Costa on guitar. Of course, Eric Johnson, Eric Gales, Cannonball Adderley on saxophone, Benny Carter on saxophone. On guitar also, this is an important one for me too, is Stanley Jordan. And Stanley Jordan and Reggie Wooten both are the guys that I kind of pull from for my whole tapping thing. Stanley more so for the right hand having a lot of dexterity and being able to do things like bend strings and have consistent vibrato. Reggie for more really interesting ideas for linking chords together and arpeggios together. Because these are all chords. These are all arpeggios, obviously. But just the way to link those together like that. What I'm doing is descending on a chromatic scale from C to G. But it sounds crazy because I'm changing the chord voicings each time the chord descends. Major, minor, major, minor, major, and then another major. Those are all add 9 chords. And there's so many different shapes you can use in that sort of thing. So yeah, a lot of that stuff comes from Reggie and from Stanley Jordan. Victor Wooten is a huge influence, both musically and spiritually, and one of my favorite humans on planet Earth, so he's definitely in there too. And I'm sure I'm thinking, video game music and all that stuff is huge. Final Fantasy, Toejam Earl, Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger. There was a game for Genesis called Wacky Worlds that was huge for me. But just listen to every instrument, you know, listen to anything. They asked Sun Ra one time, what are your biggest influences right now? And he goes, rocks, trees, sand. You know, the older I get, the more that really hits me really hard, because that's incredible. Birds really inspire me a lot, you know, and the stars always have. So anyway, this has been Cody Wright. You've been watching a little bit about my influences and everything behind the scenes.